Welcome to the small tutorial on the TurnItIn Assignment hand-in through MyBPC Moodle learning environment. What we're going to do first is go into MyBPC and My Learning. I've already logged in, so it hasn't asked me for my credentials, but obviously if you haven't logged in you'll have to provide your username and password. Then you go to the course which you wish to have the Turn-In assignment created. In this case I'm going to just use the BPC Sandbox, which is a testing area. I will then go into the sandbox and I've got a test area here, so I'm going to create an assignment within this area here. So the first thing that I need to do is to create the assignment, its title and description. So I need to turn editing on to do that. So I'll turn editing on from the left hand side there. Now it looks as if I can create an assignment or activity. So I can click on the add an activity or resource, and then I can select a TurnItIn assignment, and that is about halfway down here. So I click on that and click add, and that goes into a dialog here of adding a new TurnItIn assignment to that particular course. I then need to add a title, so I'll say assignment 3 in this case. And then I'll create a description, or I could create a description if I want. I'm just going to cut and paste the title, but it would be useful here to say, give some details to the student as to what they actually are required to do, although of course this may be in a separate document. If it is in a separate document, you could always link the document to this description. So for example, I could say write 500 words on comets. Okay, then I could reference the assignment details. And what we can do here is we can just select the area of text which you wish the student to select, click on the link button, and then provide the system with the link to that document. If that document already exists in Moodle, then you could click it, right click, and then save it into there. Okay then, so I've created a title and a description. The next thing to do is to look at the general settings, which are here. Whether or not you wish to display the description on the course page, which you probably will if you're going to provide additional information for the student. Submission type. Now it says any submission type here, but I would recommend that you set it to file upload. The other option you'll notice is text submission, and this allows the student to actually type text in and then submit it, and that's not a particularly good way of doing things, as we'd encourage students to have their documents ready for upload and have worked on them rather than typing text directly into the system. Number of parts, usually 1. Maximum file size, you'll notice that is significantly lower than the normal assignment hand-in, being 20 megabytes as the maximum, so I'd leave that at the maximum. Although it must be said that if the document is only text, then it will TurnItIn will have an upper limit of 2 megabyte, which for text only is quite high, so don't worry too much about that. The limit is larger here in case you have pictures and diagrams, etc. The next option is quite a useful one. Its default is no. If it is no, then the students can't view their own originality reports, and you might want them to be able to view these reports and to be able to see exactly how much has been matched, how much of their text has been matched. So I'd usually click this to yes. You then have a set of advanced TurnItIn options. Whether or not you allow late submissions, and I'd leave that to no, so that no submissions can actually be uploaded after the due date. There are 3 report generation speeds. The default is to generate reports immediately, and the first report is final and never changed. The second one generates the reports immediately again, but this time the reports can be overwritten any number of times until the due date. However, there is a 24-hour gap between the submission of one assignment and its resubmission. Generate reports on the due date. In other words, reports are withheld until the due date. Again, if you wish the students to have access to the originality reports, it's worthwhile clicking the second option here. Then they can effectively see their reports, the originality reports, and then act on it and resubmit any number of times before the due date. Store student papers, standard repository, leave that as it is. Check against other stored papers in that repository. Yes, that we usually want to do that to check plagiarism between students' work. Check against the internet, yes, and check against journals, periodicals and publications, so those would usually be left yes. Exclude bibliography or exclude quoted material. The defaults of these are no, so they're not excluded, so they're included in the matching, and I would leave those as they are. And then exclude small matches. This allows you to exclude a small number of words so that turns of phrase aren't necessarily picked up as a match, and I think a good setting here is either 4 or 5 words. You can use a percentage of the document, but that is very difficult to control, and I wouldn't recommend it. Okay, so when you're happy with all that, you can change the grade, common module settings and restriction of access, as well as activity completion, as you can with any assignment. So I'm going to leave those all as they are, and I'm going to save and display. Upon saving, obviously the TurnItIn assignment element is created from within Moodle. There we go. And it's taken me actually to the new TurnItIn assignment box. If I just go back, I can check that a new TurnItIn assignment has been created. So I'm going back to my course here, and I can see here there's the assignment and the description that's been created. And if I go into it, I can see the screen that I saw before. The first element is a summary. Now what's actually happened here is, you may have noticed that there wasn't any start date or any due date for the system, and this is because this is now edited via the TurnItIn system, so via this part of the system, and it's created today's date and a due date of a week later, with the post date being the same. Now if I go into the small edit icon in there, I can now change the start, due and post dates, as well as the maximum marks for that particular assignment. This is slightly different to the other way of handling assignments, in the traditional way of handling assignments, because the start date, due date and post date would all be configured in the general settings, so these have been removed to this second sort of phase. So the start date, I'll just enter yesterday, just so that we're happy that we're within that. The due date I can have to any particular one, so I'm going to say 25th of December, and the post date is when the results will be posted. I will have that perhaps as a little bit later. Maximum marks 100, so I give it percentage, which is the recommended way that we would mark assignments, and then I can submit that, and the dates will now change as they're uploaded to Moodle. And it's synchronizing data with the TurnItIn information as well. Okay, so we have our dates there. You've also got a submit paper, which allows you to submit a paper on behalf of a student. I'm going to be using that in a minute just to show you how to do that process, and a submission inbox which shows you for all the students in the particular course whether they've submitted or not, and the date in which they've submitted, and the report if it's been generated. There's also an options tab here which gives you further options on the TurnItIn assignment, and you can see most of these have help pages here. The only important ones here really are whether you're going to submit to TurnItIn immediately, which is the usual way, or whether you're going to review and upload before submitting it to TurnItIn. Now, with the way that the system's set up, the submission to TurnItIn is synchronized with the submission into Moodle, so I'd leave that alone. The grading settings use the gradebook. GradeMark is the system that's used for TurnItIn, but you can opt to use Moodle if you wish. Show grades as a percentage, and auto refresh the originality scores, and select all the students in the list or only those that have submitted. So that's summary. Okay. Now let's look at submitting a paper. So if I go into submit paper, I can submit a student on the course. So let's say student 1. There's a student on the course, this test course. The title was assignment 3. Now it doesn't matter if that title is incorrect or different. If the student was doing this, then obviously they might get the wrong title. That bears no relationship to the actual submission made, because the submission made is through a specific assignment. But it's useful if you can get the students to type a meaningful name into here. So it's assignment 3 on comments. There's only one part, so that's not changeable. And then I can choose a file, and this is what the students would do. They choose a file here, and so I've got one. I'll open it there, and then when I click add submission, what's going to happen here is it's going to upload to Moodle and TurnItIn. So while that's waiting to do that, we can have a look at our submission inbox. Okay, we can see here, so the paper has been submitted. In the submission inbox now, student 1 has got the submission being made. It was submitted at a particular date and time, and you can see here where the similarity mark would be. We have a pending, and the reason we have a pending there is because the report now is being processed by the TurnItIn system, and when it's been processed, that pending will change to a value. If I want to refresh this at all, I can go to the little arrow here and refresh this, and it synchronises the data with the TurnItIn, and as you can see here now the pending has turned into a value, 95%. If I click on this, I go into the document viewer, which takes a few seconds, and here we are. We've now got the document viewer. Over the left hand side here is the document I handed in, and rather unsurprisingly for me, it's received a very high mark of 95%. The reason this is because I copied it from Wikipedia, and you can see it's matched the whole of the text here with 95% over on the right hand side here, giving me a view of all the sources. If I want a more detailed view of all the sources, I can click on the right hand one, and it tells me where the various matches occur, including ones that don't match quite as well as the 95%, and all the way down here for all the ones that it will match. So we've got quite a lot there. but the main one was Wikipedia here. That's the highest match, so it's given me that on top, and that's given rise to the mark there. It also allows me in the detailed mode to actually view the original source that's caused that. So this is the source here from the web page about comments that I've copied the information from. I can close that down. There are various other options on the system here. You can obviously zoom in and zoom out of the text. You've got colour coding here for the text. There's only one colour because there's only been one match in this particular case. You can download to print on here via a PDF. You can get a class access code here to generate, which will allow you to work from an iPad, and provided you download the TurnItIn app, you can log in using this system. So that's a useful feature if you want to use TurnItIn and you haven't got access to a computer. Information, little I here, just gives you a word count and a summary of the originality scores there. And you can switch into grade mark view, which allows you to put comments in to the system here and to mark it via grade mark rather than via Moodle. And that concludes this tutorial.